The Server Explorer window provides a way to explore databases and system-level resources on your local computer. If you are on a network, it also permits access to computers and services on remote computers. To demonstrate this, I will use a solution called Working with the Server Explorer. And I'm using this Visual Basic project called Windows Forms app. I picked Windows Forms because they work really well with the Server Explorer components. To see the Server Explorer, you need to go to View and then choose Server Explorer. If you still don't see it, you might need to unhide the page. You do that by clicking on the Auto Hide button. So it'll look like this if it's docked to the side. Then I click here and pin it out so I get the full-size window. I have a servers node here that shows all the servers on my network. Currently, I'm only looking at one, my local computer. If I want to add other servers, I would right-click and choose Add Server. In this dialog, I would specify the name of my network computer and then click OK. For my demonstration, I do not want to do that, so I will click Cancel. Inside my computer are a list of possible items I can look at. Your computer may not look the same as mine because it depends on what operating system you have installed and what services are currently running on your computer. On my computer, I can see the event logs. Here's all the event logs on my computer. These match the regular event logs that you see in the log viewer. I also can see my management classes and things like performance counters and the local services that are running or stopped on my computer. At first glance, it looks like this is merely a tool for exploring and viewing resource information. But it's more than that. Not only can you view the server information in this window, but you can also use these child items in your application. Let me show you how to do that. I'm going to switch to my form1.vb by double-clicking on it and looking at this designer. I have one button and several labels. What I want to do is when you click on this button, I want to read information about the size of the disk space on my C drive. I'll put that information here in this label. And then later, I'll monitor the processors on my computer and see how much work they're doing by putting the information in this label. So to start my process, I'm going to open something called the Management Classes and look for this section called Disk Volumes. I'll open this up and click on each of the drives in here. There's my C drive, and there's my D drive, and there's my E drive. When I click on one of these items, I can see the information about it over here in my Properties window. This shows information about this logical disk. I can also read information about the directories on this computer, the files that are in this directory, the disk volumes that are part of this, file security, you name it, I can read this information. What I'm going to do for my demo is work with this disk here, this C. So what I do is I come up here and I drag this over to the Windows form. When I let go of my mouse, Visual Studio adds what's called a component tray to the bottom of the screen. And it's added an instance of this logical disk to the tray. This is a programmable object that I can use in my code. Let me show you how to do that. I will double click on this button, which stubs in some code. Slide this window over for a little bit more room. And then I'm going to take that label 3.txt, and now I'm going to read the information from that logical disk. Yeah, I'll use this free space. I'll turn that into a string, and then this allows me to format that string. Let's say I want to have some decimal places in here. I would type in 0,0. Let's review what I've done. I'm interrogating this object, examining the free space, formatting the string, and then assigning it to this text property. To run this application, I'm going to choose Debug, Start Debugging. And then when I click on this button, I'm interrogating that object. There's more. Let's look at the processor on my computer. Do the same thing. We'll go back to the Form Designer. Look at the performance counters down here. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of performance counters installed on your computers and your users' computers. What I'm going to look for is the processor node. Here it is. And then I'm going to look for the percentage of processor time. How much of my processor is being used, the total amount. Again, I'll drag this over to my designer surface, and it creates my component down here. What I'd like to have happen is a timer fire every half a second to update this information. To make that work, I'm going to go to my toolbox. I'm going to open this section of my toolbox called the All Windows Forms. and then look for something called the timer. There it is. I'll drag this over to my form. And again, I get an item in my component tray. Now I'll go over and set the interval to 500 milliseconds. I will enable the timer by choosing from this dropdown and setting it to true. And then I'll write some code by clicking on the lightning bolt, which is my event section, and typing in a function name here for my tick event. Timer tick. Then I'll press enter. Visual Studio stubs in this sub procedure. Now I just need to write one line of code. Label for dot text equal. I'll get my performance counter and I'll interrogate the operating system and say, get me the current reading from that performance counter. And that's ready to go. Again, I'll run the application by choosing debug, start debugging. And as you see, every time the timer fires, it's interrogating the operating system and getting the processor information. The Server Explorer exists to let me easily add system monitors to my applications. Read the help file to learn more about how this works.